Tonight on NewsWatch, progress in Afghanistan, what it means for U.S. troops.
Plus, overcrowded jails, skyrocketing costs, a plan to reform America's prison system.
And an exclusive report inside China and why one of the largest underground churches there has decided to go public. All this and much more tonight on NewsWatch. Good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith.
And I'm George Thomas. We begin in our nation's capital, where U.S. troops in Afghanistan will begin coming home next July. President Obama made the announcement on the drawdown at the White House today.
We are moving toward a new phase in Afghanistan, a transition to full Afghan lead for security that will begin early next year and will conclude in 2014.
The Afghan War Report says despite American and NATO strides against Taliban and al-Qaeda forces, the situation in Afghanistan remains fragile. One top concern is Pakistan. The U.S. says the Islamic country needs to do more to confront extremists on its soil. Meanwhile, U.S. and its NATO allies will stay in Afghanistan through 2014.
Despite the mixed report detailing some progress, critics are calling for an immediate end to the war in Afghanistan. The report's release coincided with an anti-war protest in front of the White House. John Jessup was there.
They marched, they sang, and some got arrested, all to show their opposition to war.
I'm totally against these occupations.
Former Army Specialist Zach Schote received a Purple Heart after getting injured in Iraq, a tour that not only left him physically wounded, but diminished his support for the war.
We've done many air assaults where we would raid, countless houses, only to terrify the women and children and find nothing. I mean, that stuff sticks with me. I was blown up. I mean, that sticks with me.
Protesters say the 10-year fight, with a price tag nearing $400 billion, would be better spent here.
Work a lot with K-12 schools, which have very little money, and I'm tired of the argument that we don't have any money for schools or for higher education when I know how much money is being spent on these senseless wars.
Anti-war protesters marched from Lafayette Square over to the White House. They have a message they want the White House to see and hear loud and clear: an immediate end to the war in Afghanistan. But that seems unlikely. The White House report on Afghanistan says the mission remains the same: to defeat, dismantle, and disrupt al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. The administration's report shows progress, but those protesting the war don't buy it.
That sounds like something I heard when I was in the Army during Vietnam. Initially, the President said he was going to withdraw in 2011. How he's extended that, and it sounds just like Vietnam. We were winning until we left.
The Family Research Council's Tony Perkins, a former Marine, says it's important that the U.S. is taking the fight directly to the enemy.
Yes, it's controversial. Yes, it's costly. But would we rather be fighting these battles in Afghanistan or in the streets of New York or Los Angeles?
The administration's answer for now, and at least through 2014, is Afghanistan. John Jessup, CBN News, the White House.
Tax cuts, a massive spending bill, and a nuclear arms treaty. Well, they're just some of the heavy items left for Congress to lift during this lame duck session. Even as Christmas approaches, Democrats are threatening to push through the holiday to get their agenda passed. Jennifer Wishon has that story from Washington.
As the lame duck session of Congress waddles on, plenty of feathers are getting ruffled. The Senate voted to extend the Bush tax cuts to all taxpayers, but Majority Leader Harry Reid is still pushing a hefty agenda, including a massive 1,900-page, $1.2 trillion spending bill. It's designed to keep the federal government running, but in between funding for core government services are more than 6,000 pet projects worth $8 billion.
The American people said just 42 days ago, enough. Are we tone deaf? Are we stricken with amnesia? What is going on here?
Some of the projects include more than $500,000 for blueberry and cranberry disease and breeding in New Jersey, $400,000 for solar parking canopies and plug-in electric stations in Kansas, and $349,000 for swine waste management in North Carolina.
I think it demonstrates profound disrespect for the American people.
Over in the House, homosexuals have won a major victory.
The yeas are 250. The nays are 175. The motion is adopted.
Members voted overwhelmingly to repeal the military's long-standing Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which prohibits homosexuals from serving openly in the military.
It's a very proud day for this Congress when we are fighting discrimination.
The Senate will likely consider the measure next week, and Senator Joe Lieberman, a strong advocate of repeal, says he has the votes to get it passed. Another big issue facing the Senate is approval of the START Treaty, a nuclear arms agreement with Russia. Majority Leader Reid has suggested members work past Christmas to get their work done, a suggestion South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint called, quote, disrespectful and sacrilegious. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Winter weather in Washington didn't stop lawmakers. Snow started falling late morning and remained steady throughout the afternoon. At least 3 inches are expected to blanket the nation's capital. It's part of a storm that's dumping snow, ice, and rain on parts of the South. And at the CBN News headquarters here in Virginia Beach, we also saw a couple of inches of snow, kind of rare for around here. Icy conditions expected tonight along the East Coast could make driving conditions very dangerous. Many schools and businesses closed early to give people enough time to get home before conditions worsen.
Overseas in London, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is out on bail following a week of legal drama over his extradition. The 39-year-old Australian is fighting moves to take him to Sweden, where he faces sex crimes allegations related to a visit there over the summer. Assange is now expected to head to a British country mansion where he'll have to observe a curfew and wear a monitoring device.
A computer worm that infected Iran's nuclear program may have caused a 2-year setback in its development. As CBN's Julie Stahl reports, some are considering it a military victory.
Some are calling it a digital warhead. Israel, the U.S., and/or other Western nations are suspected of creating the Stuxnet worm, or malicious software, to try to derail the suspected development of an Iranian nuclear weapon.
As soon as it wakes up, it looks around and it says, where am I? And it says, when it finds this particular system, it says, I'm home. Let me go to work. And then it starts doing things.
Iranian leader Mahmoud Ahmadinejad admitted a computer code had created problems for what he said were a limited number of centrifuges. The centrifuges enrich uranium, which could be used to make nuclear energy or bombs. And the International Atomic Energy Agency officially announced that Iran had to shut down its main uranium enrichment plant at Natanz last month. According to a top German computer consultant, quoted by the Jerusalem Post, it could take Iran 2 years to get its nuclear program back on track. This was nearly as effective as a military strike, but even better since there are no fatalities and no full-blown war. From a military perspective, this was a huge success. Intelligence expert Yael Shachar of the Institute of Counterterrorism in Herzliya said she believes the Stuxnet worm will go down as a first in military history.
Cyber warfare is the wave of the future, because the more systems become dependent on electronic systems, digital systems, online systems, then the more vulnerabilities there are.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The 2 men involved in the arson of 10 churches in Texas have pleaded guilty. Police arrested 19-year-old Jason Robert and 21-year-old Daniel George McAllister in February on felony arson charges. They say they intentionally set the fires, destroying or damaging 10 churches. Prosecutors are seeking life terms for the arson charge.
Conservative leaders are signing on to a campaign that may seem to be out of character, reforming the criminal justice system. They're abandoning the old lock 'em up and throw away the key philosophy. They say it's not working and it's costing too much. Paul Strand has the story from Washington.
These conservative leaders have realized billions of dollars can be saved getting smart on crime rather than just tough on crime.
Save money and keep the public safer.
Pat Nolan of Prison Fellowship says the prison system now costs $68 billion a year, up 400% in the last 25 years, while America's population is up only 5%.
We could probably save on the $4 or $5 billion, and we would be safer.
There are some states now that are spending as much money building prisons as they are educating their children.
Texas has been leading the way in reforms conservatives can embrace.
We have saved billions of dollars. Crime rate has gone down 9%. and we've improved public safety.
These conservatives are launching a campaign called Right on Crime to educate state leaders about proven reforms like those in Texas. These can be seen at their new website, rightoncrime.com. Solutions range from using more community programs like drug rehab and taking crimes off the books that aren't really crimes. These conservative panelists all say reform should certainly involve the proven religious-based programs like prison fellowship pushes.
The government doesn't have enough money to put into trying to transform inmates. That's where the church comes in. We can come alongside the inmates with mentor programs, with discipleship program, teach them how to live life as a Christian, trying to bring their families back together to heal those wounds.
The prison system left to its own devices sees 50% of its freed prisoners right back within 3 years, a 50% failure rate. These conservatives say that's unconscionable. Secularists may not like it, but Christ-centered programs in prisons have already saved many millions of dollars in numerous states.
It's the answer to this big hole in the budgets, and it's also the answer on lowering crime, because these people that are focused on Christ then become good citizens, good husbands, good employees.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Just ahead, they were tortured and killed for their faith in Jesus Christ. Now, from inside China comes a song of praise. See why these house churches are out in the open.
The doctor came in. I was still waking up from anesthesia. He leaned over my bed and he said, "Laura, you have cancer." And he walked out of the room. The first thought is, what's going to happen to my children?
It's pretty rare for a person as young as me to get Hodgkin's disease. You would think, am I going to be here next year? Am I going to be able to spend more time with my family? And that was really hard.
The doctor says I would like to have his wife, his pastor, and his 2 best friends present. Then you know you're about to receive really bad news. There was very little hope given to us.
I just wanted this cancer out of me. I wanted to take care of it and move on.
We saw an ad on TV for Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and when I called them, I was very surprised that they were so quick to help us.
The second that we walked through the door, I knew that was the place that I wanted to be. If it wasn't for their kindness and giving, it would be unbearable to be able to go through something like that. And I honestly don't know how people who don't get that are able to handle it.
We were looking for medical care that would help us fight cancer, not manage it, but to actually fight it and beat it. And that's what we found.
Most people thought that that was a death sentence. I knew that I wanted to fight this. I knew I wasn't going to let that happen to me.
If you're a winner and you're a fighter and you're strong, you're going to stay that way. Your mental makeup, your attitude that you've taken your whole life with you, you're going to keep that attitude.
I said, let's just do it, and let me go on with my life.
Call now and we'll send you this free DVD that shows you how the most compassionate group of people anywhere puts you at the center of everything we do. Advanced medical treatment combined with unique supportive therapies give you treatment options you may not even know exist.
Cancer Treatment Centers of America is the way of the future. Patients are now taking control of their own healthcare destiny.
I truly wondered when he had cancer if I would ever get him back. Thanks to Cancer Treatment Centers of America, I have my husband back.
A new report released today shows a major breakdown in American families. The report conducted by the Family Research Council shows only 45% of teenagers have spent their childhood with both their parents married and living in the same home. The other 55% of teens live in families where their biological parents have rejected each other.
And for more on this story, we turn to Dr. Pat Fagan with the Family Research Council. Dr. Fagan, thank you so much for joining us. You know the saying, sir, a nation is only as strong as its citizens. What's the impact of these numbers on society, firstly, and then the economy?
Only 45% of our children reach adulthood having grown up with their mother and father. The other 55% essentially have experienced the rejection between their parents, and that weakens both the parents, but particularly the children. So the next generation, is more than half of our children have experienced the rejection of their parents, thus weakening them.
And what is causing this breakdown in family?
I'd describe it, I'd say that by and large, American men and women no longer like each other enough to raise the children they brought into existence. So there's a lack of love. I suspect actually there's a big misconception as to what love really is. The Hollywood romance idea of love is nice and it's icing on the cake, but it's not enough to sustain a marriage, raising children and a family.
Can you talk about the impact all this is having on our children?
Education performance is lower, crime is higher, health is lower, abuse is higher, mental health is lower, income is lower. On all the big institutions, all the big tasks of society are affected in a negative way.
What can we do as parents and perhaps more importantly as Christians to help counter this culture of rejection?
Well, I think the church itself is part of the crisis. One of the things that, if you look at it, the rank ordering of the states, the most intact states in the country are up in the Northeast, the least intact are in the South. Where the religious practice is highest, in the Northeast, religious practice is lowest. So we have a real anomaly here. By and large, most of the people who are going to church are Christians. So deep in the Christian church, we have the biggest breakdown in the family. That's a scandal. That's where the reform has to first begin. And I suspect, it's got to begin with the pastors themselves, and then it's got to begin with the preaching, teaching, and guiding and disciplining. There's a deep crisis, a deep scandal in the church on marriage and on sexuality.
Okay, very, very important research by you guys. I appreciate you coming in. Dr. Pat Fagan with the Family Research Council. I'm sure if we had more time, we could talk more in depth, but you can go on to our website, cbnnews.com, for more information. Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
There's been a record number of tourists in Bethlehem this year, and now there's literally, you guessed it, no room at the inn. Hotel rooms are fully booked for Christmas week, due in part to declining violence in the West Bank. Already this year, 1.4 million tourists have visited the Church of the Nativity, the traditional birthplace of Jesus. The Israeli government says 90,000 will likely visit during the Christmas season. Tens of thousands are expected to gather in Manger Square on Christmas Eve, right in front of the church.
Up next, an exclusive report from China and how Christians there are getting bolder about sharing their faith.
If you have Medicare, you may have questions.
Do you have the right Medicare health plan? Are you saving money? Are you with a company you can rely on?
Now you can get answers to these important questions in this free, fact-filled booklet, Living Better with Medicare. It's your guide to Humana Medicare Advantage plans, and it's yours just by calling 1-877-323-3703 or visiting us online at humanaanswers.com.
With a Humana plan, you get both medical and prescription drug coverage from one of the nation's leading health benefits companies. And you're covered when you see your doctor or specialist, or even if you have to go to the hospital. Humana plans cover many preventive services such as mammograms and prostate exams.
And best of all, Humana Medicare Advantage plans have an affordable monthly health plan premium, or even no plan premium in some areas, so costs are easy to budget. You can get all the facts in this free booklet, Living Better with Medicare. Just call 1-877-323-3703 or go online to humanaanswers.com.
With a Humana plan, you get more. Extras like a fitness center membership and a 24-hour nurse advice line. There's even a prescription home delivery service that's going to save you money and trips to the pharmacy.
To find out if you have the right Medicare health plan, you need to get the facts and learn about the Humana Medicare Advantage plan. Don't put this off. The call and the book are free and there's no obligation. That number again is 1-877-323-3703 or go to humanaanswers.com. Call or go online now for the free booklet so you can get the facts and start living better with a Humana Medicare Advantage plan. Just call 1-877-323-3703.
Well, for decades, they faced arrest, torture, death, and for their faith.
But for more than 40 years after the Cultural Revolution, Chinese Christians are, well, they're getting bolder about sharing their faith in public. And now one of the largest underground churches in Beijing has decided to go public. On a recent Sunday morning, a few blocks from Beijing's financial district, hundreds of Christians gathered to worship God.
20 years ago, we would have never permitted you to film our meeting. But today, China is changing, and the church has to change as well.
Jin Tiangming pastors one of the largest so-called underground churches in Beijing. This is the first time since founding his church 17 years ago that he's opened the service to cameras.
We worship in secret for years. We were spread out across the city, meeting in different people's homes.
Then a couple of years ago, the church decided to come out of hiding. They rented space in a small office building and began meeting together in one location. Liu Gan is an elder in the church.
We brought all the small house churches together in one place, even though it was a huge security risk. But this was an important first step.
Next, they went public.
We felt that God was calling our church to be a city on a hill, a light on the mountaintop. To do this, we had to open up.
Members began openly inviting non-believers to the meetings. The church began to grow. Liu says some 1,000 people regularly attend the weekly service, and often it's standing room only.
In my church, we gathered so many members of Christians. They all have the passion. They want to be a good witness to the society.
Such open proselytizing is still forbidden in China. Technically, this is also an illegal gathering, since the church hasn't registered with the government, nor is it part of any of the state-sanctioned churches. But the authorities have chosen to turn a blind eye.
Today is Communist China's new and global manifesto, militant and menacing.
It's a far cry from the dark days of the Cultural Revolution, when authorities burned churches, temples, and mosques to the ground. Pastors and Christians were routinely arrested and labeled counter-revolutionaries. Today, Chinese government data and international surveys report millions of Chinese people are flocking to religions like Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, and Islam. But it's Christianity that's experiencing the most dramatic growth. Trying to get precise figures on the number of Christians today in China is extremely difficult, but clearly they are part of mainstream society today. All the more experts say that Christians, especially those who are part of the so-called house church, go public. Recently, Shuang Church did something that would have been unthinkable decades ago. They began holding secret talks with government authorities in Beijing, including with members of the city's security bureau.
In our perspective, we are making progress, and we are having dialogue with them better and better.
But this is a church that has faced its share of challenges. You see, a couple of years ago, they were looking for a new home, in essence, because they were growing so fast. They found a location, they had approached a landlord with a price, and the landlord agreed. They paid the money, but then the authorities began to put pressure on the landlord.
The government didn't want us to move into this new location, so they started harassing the landlord not to sell us the property.
On November 1st, 2009, in the middle of a bitter winter storm and with no suitable place to meet, 500 members of Shuang Church met in an outdoor park to worship and publicly protest the government's pressure.
We wanted the authorities to know that our goal was to meet in one place. We had found a place, and we didn't want to go back to meeting in secret and in small groups. So now we were willing to meet in the open. It was a bold move.
Well, the government wasn't going to let that happen, so instead of rounding them up and throwing them into jail, the authorities asked Shuang's leaders to go back indoors. They agreed, but finding a suitable place to meet on short notice was difficult. In a surprising move, the government stepped in and offered the church space in this building, a theater owned and operated by China's powerful People's Liberation Army. Liu Gang says it was a significant gesture, one that he and many others hope will pave the way for China's house churches to be legally recognized.
That's why we exist.
That's right. Up next, the world's most expensive Christmas tree, and you won't believe how much it's worth and where it's located.
If you have Medicare, you may have questions.
Do you have the right Medicare health plan? Are you saving money? Are you with a company you can rely on?
Now you can get answers to these important questions in this free, fact-filled booklet, Living Better with Medicare. It's your guide to Humana Medicare Advantage plans, and it's yours just by calling 1-877-323-3703 or visiting us online at humanaanswers.com.
With a Humana plan, you get both medical and prescription drug coverage from one of the nation's leading health benefits companies. And you're covered when you see your doctor or specialist, or even if you have to go to the hospital. Humana plans cover many preventive services such as mammograms and prostate exams.
And best of all, Humana Medicare Advantage plans have an affordable monthly health plan premium, or even no plan premium in some areas, so costs are easy to budget. You can get all the facts in this free booklet, Living Better with Medicare. Just call 1-877-323-3703 or go online to humanaanswers.com.
With a Humana plan, you get more. Extras like a fitness center membership and a 24-hour nurse advice line. There's even a prescription home delivery service that's going to save you money and trips to the pharmacy.
To find out if you have the right Medicare health plan, you need to get the facts and learn about the Humana Medicare Advantage plan. Don't put this off. The call and the book are free and there's no obligation. That number again is 1-877-323-3703 or go to humanaanswers.com. Call or go online now for the free booklet so you can get the facts and start living better with a Humana Medicare Advantage plan. Just call 1-877-323-3703.
We've all seen really beautiful, elaborate Christmas trees, but I guarantee you've never seen one like this. It's an $11 million tree. So what makes it so expensive? Well, take a closer look. It's filled with expensive jewelry. There are diamond necklaces and earrings, and that's just the beginning. The tree is adorned with pearls, sparkling green emeralds, and red ruby bracelets. The 46-foot artificial tree is in the lobby of the Emirates Palace Hotel in Abu Dhabi. I like to say Abu Dhabi. What a tree. Well, some children in Texas got an early Christmas surprise.
That's right. 30 kids from the Houston YMCA Boys and Girls Club thought they were simply going on a field trip. But instead, they were taken on a private shopping spree. And even better, team members of the Houston Texans football team were there to shop with the kids. Each child was given a $100 gift card to purchase holiday gifts.
And this is just a good time to spend with the kids, you know, take them out to shop and, you know, have fun with them.
Someone might not get nothing for Christmas. This might be the only thing, but, you know, it means a lot to the kids.
I bet it does. Well, not surprisingly, most of the kids picked footballs.
Yeah, and I guess one of the best treats of all was just being with those big football players and hanging out with those guys, too. Well, that's all for this edition of Newswatch.
I hope you all have a great day. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.